Now that we've finished the rough-in installation, got the drywall and painting all done, now it's time to install the finish kit. So the first step is taking the door and the bezel, and the door, if you look on the back of the door, there's a package of screws. These are the screws going to be used to screw the bezel to the cabinet in the wall. As the door frame just sits right inside of the cabinet. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and insert the screws, and we're going to put these screws in by a hand screwdriver instead of a drill driver, because we don't want to strip the plastic screw bosses with a drill driver. So that's the door installation. Now we're ready to install the hose and the retractor assembly. Okay, now that we have the door frame installed, now we can go ahead and insert the hose into the cabinet. So what we want to do is we want to slide the hose inside with the magnets, heading the magnet stop collars down into the cabinet first. Just maybe a foot or something like that. And then with your left hand, reach back in with the clip facing the left side of the cabinet. But you just want to reach back in, feel for the fitting for the pipe, and just snap it in place. Once you have that, just feel that it's snapped in, just give it a little jerk to make it sure that it's snapped. And pull back out to where the stop collar is visible, so we can attach the retractor assembly. Okay, now that we have the hose installed in the cabinet, we want to install the retractor assembly around the hose. There's a little packet of screws that are taped onto the retractor, and these are the latch locking screws that once the hose and retractor assembly is connected, then we'll take these little screws and screw in two places, one on each side, to hold these little snap latches together, so during operation the retractor assembly won't come apart. So what we'll do is, to open the retractor assembly, there's these little snap latches, one on each side, and what you do is you just take your index finger and your thumb or your middle finger and you press them in and slowly just clamshell or peel open the retractor assembly. So what we'll do is we'll use the gear drive mechanism first, and there's these little ribs, drive ribs on this large black gear. What we'll do is we want to make sure that those little drive ribs are in the recess of the hose. So we get that aligned up good, and we also want to make sure that the magnets on the stop collar are vertical in parallel with the retractor assembly. Now what we want to do is take the other half of the retractor assembly, which has the 180 degree sensing unit here, and we're going to clamshell this back together over top, and then make sure that the snap latches come in and snap together. Okay, now we want to make sure that when we look down the retractor assembly, that the magnet is pretty much vertical and right in the center of the retractor assembly. Now what we want to do is just lay the retractor assembly into the cavity and grab your little latch locking screws. Okay, now that you have your latch locking screws, you put it in the small hole, and it's a self-tapping screw, and just tighten it down on this one side, and you'll notice the latch come forward as you're screwing it in. So you just keep screwing it till it bottoms out and it's snug and tight. Remove and just lay it down, and then install the other screw. Okay, that's nice and tight. Now what we want to do is reach back in and grab our main power line, and we want to plug it in to the top connection there. Then we want to reach back in and feel for the other power cord from the hose with the with the bipolar prong. Plug both of that one in, and reach underneath of the retractor assembly and connect the white cord with the white connector to the white connector on black wires. It only snaps together one way. You snap that in, and then you come in, and it doesn't matter on these low voltage wires which one gets snapped in. Just go ahead and connect both of these. Okay, tuck the wires back up inside, and just slide all the way backwards until you hear the latch at the top of the retractor snap in place. Give it a little tug so make sure it's there. Now that we have assembled the hose to the retractor, made all our connections for the wiring, and slid the retractor back in, now it's time to go ahead and wind the hose back into the wall cavity. Now this particular hose assembly is a 3-function button keypad. It has an on and off. For the round one is an on and off for the vacuum source and also for the power nozzle. And it has a downward arrow, which the downward arrow is for reeling the hose into the wall cavity, and the upward arrow is to retract the hose out of the wall cavity. So right now what we're going to do is wind the hose into the cavity, so we're going to push the downward arrow. And the hose is just going to reel the hose into the wall. Okay, what you just saw there is the system has a torque limiter installed in the circuitry, and what that does, it protects the mechanism from any issues when the hose is caught on an obstruction, a corner, if a child would sit on the hose or anything like that. It protects the circuit board and also shuts down the motor instantly once it reaches a certain limit or pounds of force. So it's just a protective device that was installed in the unit. The rubber cap on the end of the stub tube is used when you have multiple docket installations, say one in the lower level of the house and one in the upper level of the house, that the cap is used to seal the suction at a station that's not being used, so the station you are using, that you get full maximum suction at the one you're using. Also, it's used to protect the inside of the cabinet, so it doesn't scratch up on the end of the tube in the cabinet. And when you want to use your attachment tools, you should go ahead and just take the whole cap and assembly off, and then when you're done using it, just go ahead and put it back on and install it back into the cabinet.